The freezing wind slapped against her face as she stood on the street corner, clutching the torn strap of a handbag that once cost more than most people's rent. Just months ago, Victoria Hale had been the woman people photographed at charity galas, stepping out of sleek cars with diamond bracelets glittering under flashes of cameras. But now she was nothing more than another shadow drifting between crowds, her hair unwashed, her clothes clinging to her body with the desperation of someone who no longer had choices. She blinked at the city lights, the neon signs reflecting in her eyes like broken shards of the life she once owned. A millionaire reduced to nothing in a matter of weeks, a collapse so sudden and brutal that even she could barely believe it. And on that bitter morning, with her stomach aching from hunger and her pride shattered beyond repair, Victoria realized she had reached the edge. Not the metaphorical edge people dramatized, but the real one, the point where even breathing felt too heavy, too pointless, too painful. Her life had crumbled, and no one had noticed. No one cared. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power one moment can have on a broken soul, please take a second to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Stories. Your support helps these stories reach more hearts. Victoria's downfall had not been a gradual erosion, it was a storm. A trusted financial advisor she had known for years disappeared overnight, taking her entire fortune with him. The authorities told her the same cold sentence over and over: these cases take time. But time was the one luxury she no longer had. Her businesses collapsed like dominoes, employees left, properties were repossessed, and even her so-called friends vanished as soon as the invitations stopped. She had spent decades believing money protected her, believing wealth ensured loyalty, believing success made her loved. But as she wandered the streets now, she realized how wrong she had been. Her fall from grace was marked by moments that continued haunting her. The day movers arrived at her penthouse with legal papers. The day the bank locked her out. The day she slept in her car. The day the car was towed. And the day she walked into a diner, not for a meal, but for warmth, shaking so hard she thought her bones might splinter. The world she once ruled now looked at her as if she were invisible, or worse, disposable. The diner was small, tucked between a pawn shop and a laundromat, its fogged windows glowing with orange light. Victoria pushed the door open, hoping the smell of food might fill her stomach even if her pockets were empty. The bell above the entrance chimed, a sound that felt strangely comforting, reminding her of childhood mornings before life became complicated. Inside, the aroma of freshly brewed coffee wrapped around her like a blanket she didn't deserve. She slipped into a corner booth, trying to make herself small, hoping no one would ask her to leave. Her trembling hands rested on the table, and she stared at the wood grain, unable to face the eyes of strangers. But someone saw her. Someone always sees, whether out of curiosity, judgment, or genuine concern. In this case, it was a young waiter named Sam. He was no older than 25, with tired eyes that held the weight of someone who worked double shifts yet still smiled at customers as if they were old friends. He approached her table with the ease of familiarity, though they had never met. He noticed her empty table, her lack of an order, and the tension in her shoulders that only someone carrying invisible burdens would understand. And without asking, without demanding explanations, he gently placed a steaming cup of coffee in front of her. At first, Victoria froze. Pride, humiliation, and gratitude collided like waves inside her. She had never accepted help from anyone, not of this kind, not from a stranger. But her body betrayed her. Her hands wrapped around the cup, soaking in the warmth, and before she could stop them, tears slid down her face, falling silently into the rising steam. She felt ridiculous crying over a cup of coffee, but in truth, she wasn't crying because of the drink. She was crying because someone saw her. Someone cared enough to notice she was drowning. That cup of coffee became her anchor. Victoria returned to the diner each day, never ordering, never paying, simply sitting in the corner where no one questioned her presence. And every single day, Sam brought her a cup of coffee. Sometimes the cup came with a soft smile, sometimes with a sandwich he pretended was extra or left over. She knew he was lying, but the gentleness behind the lie made her smile in a way she thought she had forgotten how. What Sam didn't know was that Victoria spent her nights in a homeless shelter, lying awake as whispers and coughing echoed through the dimly lit hall. She was too ashamed to say it, too embarrassed to admit how far she had fallen. But day by day, that little diner became the last piece of humanity she clung to. In a world that had turned its back on her, one waiter kept showing up with kindness she didn't know how to repay. Yet something strange began happening, something she never expected. Being stripped of everything forced Victoria to confront the person she had been before her downfall. She remembered how she once rushed past employees without noticing their fatigue, how she tipped waiters with bills that meant nothing to her, how she treated kindness as currency she could buy. Losing everything peeled away her arrogance layer by layer until all that remained was the version of herself she had lost decades ago, the hopeful young woman who once dreamed of success but never intended to become hardened by it. One day, after weeks of silent routine, Victoria found herself watching Sam during his shift. He worked with the kind of sincerity she once envied in people who still believed in dreams. She overheard him telling a coworker that he was saving up money to finish school, struggling with 2 jobs and caring for his mother who relied on expensive medication. Yet he still smiled. He still gave. He still helped strangers. And without realizing it, he became her mirror, reflecting the kind of person she could choose to become again. It happened gradually at first. Victoria started cleaning tables after customers left, just so Sam wouldn't have to rush. She helped wipe counters, pushed in chairs, carried napkin holders from one end of the diner to the other. Customers assumed she worked there, and she let them believe it. For the first time in years, she found herself enjoying simple tasks, appreciating the rhythm of work that wasn't fueled by greed or ambition but by honest effort. The diner owner, a woman with sharp eyes but a soft heart, noticed the change. She approached Victoria one afternoon, offering her a part-time position. Victoria hesitated, embarrassed by her lack of experience, but the owner simply shrugged and said everyone starts somewhere. And so, a former millionaire became a diner worker, wearing an apron instead of designer dresses, earning minimum wage instead of millions, learning humility instead of entitlement. Months passed, and Victoria rebuilt herself not through wealth, but through kindness, routine, and quiet resilience. She saved her paychecks, helped Sam whenever she could, and learned the names and stories of customers she once would have ignored. She discovered that the world wasn't divided into the wealthy and the poor, but into 2 kinds of people, those who cared and those who didn't. And for the first time in her life, she chose to belong to the first group. Then came the day everything changed again. A law firm contacted her after months of searching. They had tracked down the fraudulent advisor overseas, recovered a portion of her stolen fortune, and after legal battles she didn't even know were happening, Victoria suddenly found herself with resources again. Not her full empire, not the luxurious life she once lived, but enough to lift her out of survival mode. Enough to rebuild. Enough to start again. But she didn't want her old life. She didn't want the cold penthouse, the hollow parties, the empty friendships. She wanted the diner. She wanted the warmth she found in small gestures. She wanted the version of herself who could find joy in a simple cup of coffee. So she made a choice that shocked even her. Instead of reclaiming her former empire, she bought the diner. Not to own it the way she once owned things, but to preserve the space that saved her. She renovated it, expanded it, raised wages, and created scholarships for employees who wanted to pursue education, starting with Sam. When she handed him the envelope with his full tuition paid, he cried in a way she had once cried over a cup of coffee. That was the moment Victoria understood something profound. Her losses had not destroyed her. They had rebuilt her. They had stripped her down to the truth of who she was always meant to be. And the cup of coffee that changed her life became the symbol of the diner's mission. Above the counter, she hung a sign that read, "One small act of kindness can rewrite someone's entire story." People from across the city began visiting, not because the diner was fancy, but because it felt like home, a place where kindness flowed as freely as the coffee. Victoria hired people who had been overlooked, offering work to the homeless, the elderly, the struggling. Her story spread quietly, inspiring people to pay forward the compassion they once received. If this story has touched your heart even a little, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Stories. Your engagement truly helps keep these emotional stories alive. Before the ending, I have one special request. Please comment the words, "Kindness changes everything," if you believe in the power of compassion. In the end, Victoria didn't regain her old life, she built a better one. A life rooted in gratitude, humility, and human connection. A life where every cup of coffee served reminded her that hope can come from the most unexpected places. A life that proved losing everything was not the end, but the beginning of a story more beautiful than she ever imagined. And it all started with one waiter. And one cup of coffee.